Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to take a long look at a pair of black championship series from the disorganized days before the Negro Leagues in 1903 and 1904 between two clubs called the Cuban Ex-Giants and the Philadelphia Giants. Our story actually begins 18 years earlier, in 1885, at the Argyle Hotel in Babylon, Long Island, New York, where a baseball team was formed among the black waitstaff. They spoke pidgin Spanish on the field and called themselves the Cuban Giants because Cubans were more acceptable than African Americans to the hotel clientele the team entertained. The Cuban Giants were the first professional black baseball team. They quickly outgrew their hotel origins, attracting the best black ball players in the New York area and becoming a major power in the Eastern semi-pro circuit. By 1895, 10 years after their founding, the club was so famous that a Burlington, Vermont advertisement for an upcoming game would state, "The Cuban Giants need no recommendation." But the following spring, a newcomer would appear to challenge the Cuban Giants' supremacy. From the Wilkes-Barre News, the original Cuban Giants will be known as the ex-Cuban Giants this year. So writes E.B. Lamar Jr., the manager of the team, who gives no reason for the change. The club retains all its well-known players, and games can be secured by addressing Mr. Lamar at the northeast corner of 134th Street and St. Anne's Avenue, New York City. The unstated reason for the change was a ball players' insurrection. Cuban Giants owner John Bright was so stingy the team quit en masse to form their own club under the co-op plan. E.B. Lamar Jr. didn't own the team, the players owned it, and he worked for them. John Bright responded by recruiting a new squad of players, which he publicized as the original Cuban Giants. The ex-Giants challenged the originals more than once during the 1896 season, but Bright ignored them. The teams finally met the following October in a four-game series for the mythical Colored Championship. And as you might expect, the ex-Giants, with the more talented and veteran roster, triumphed rather easily. In a rematch a year later, the ex-Giants were again victorious. After a pair of decisive beatings, Bright's Cuban Giants were finished as a top-level squad. Though the team continued playing until 1914, they were never again among the leading black clubs in the East. The Cuban ex-Giants were now the undisputed champions of Eastern blackball. They demonstrated their worth in the fall of 1901 when they played Connie Mack's Philadelphia Athletics to an 11-inning 4-4 tie. But the following spring, a newcomer would appear to challenge the Cuban ex-Giants' supremacy. From the Akron Beacon Journal, Saul White, one of the most famous of the tribe of black ball tossers, has raided both the Cuban Giants and the Cuban ex-Giants and has originated a new team called the Philadelphia Giants. They have secured a lease on Connie Mack's athletic grounds and will play their home games when the Americanites are on the road. Saul White, on the left, was a 35-year-old star and one of the most distinguished figures in black baseball. He ran the baseball side of the operation. The business side was handled by H. Walter Slichter on the right, the 36-year-old sports editor of the Philadelphia Evening Item. Together, they set out to build a baseball power. Saul White's connections in black baseball enabled him to quickly assemble a strong competitive side. In 1902, the Philadelphia Giants issued several challenges to the Cuban ex-Giants for a championship series, which the ex-Giants, having been through this process before, ignored. But a year later, in September 1903, came the announcement that the two clubs would finally meet in a, quote, series of games for the colored championship of the world. The club scheduled 8 games in 7 days in 6 different cities in Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. The series was special because top-level black versus black baseball was still a rarity. The statistical database at seamheads.com is the authoritative source of statistics for segregated black baseball. Seamheads only recognizes games played by black teams against the highest level of competition. What you see here is a list of games in the Seamhead database for the first 8 years in the career of ex-Giants captain Grant Home Run Johnson. In 8 seasons, Johnson played only 14 games that met Seamhead's criteria. This upcoming series will represent a 50% increase in Grant Johnson's career stats on Seamheads in just a week of baseball. Because of this scarcity, the statistics given in the team profiles to follow are career numbers. Now let's look at the roster of the defending champion Cuban ex-Giants. Leading off, 25-year-old Charlie Grant, a slick fielding second baseman. 2 years earlier, Baltimore Orioles manager John McGraw famously attempted to subvert the Major League's color line by passing Grant off as a Native American named Chief Tokahama. Grant had been playing for the Chicago Columbia Giants, and it was Chicago White Sox owner Charlie Comiskey who became aware of Tokahama's true identity and foiled McGraw's plan. Grant joined the ex-Giants this season after 6 years playing out west. Batting second, first baseman Bob Jordan. The 35-year-old veteran was one of the players who restocked the Cuban Giants roster after the mass defection to the ex-Giants in 1896. 2 years later, he joined the ex-Giants, for whom he played first, catcher, short, and outfield while providing a useful bat. 30-year-old Grant Johnson was the captain and star of the ex-Giants and the greatest black baseball player of his generation. He began playing in his hometown of Findlay, Ohio, where he once hit 60 homers in a season and earned the nickname Home Run Johnson that would follow him the rest of his career. In 1895, Johnson teamed with Bud Fowler to form the Page Fence Giants, one of the greatest early black pro teams. From there, he went on to star for the Chicago Columbia Giants. He joined the ex-Giants this season, his first playing on the East Coast. I consider Grant Johnson to be one of the most glaring omissions from the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. In the lineup most commonly used by the Cuban ex-Giants in this series, the starting pitcher batted in the cleanup position. Batting fifth, 37-year-old catcher Clarence Williams. Williams joined the Cuban Giants during their debut season of 1885 and starred for the club from their earliest years through the transformation into the ex-Giants. He's the last man from that first black pro team still actively playing. He's a smart veteran field general behind the plate, as well as a solid hitter. Hitting sixth, the enigmatic Will Jackson, a weak-hitting outfielder who started for the Cuban Giants and ex-Giants for 17 years. Despite the lengthy career, we don't know when or where Will Jackson was born or died, or which side of the plate he hit from. Batting seventh, 23-year-old center fielder Andrew Jap Payne. Payne is at the beginning of a 17-year career in top-level blackball. He broke in a year earlier with the fledgling Philadelphia Giants and joined the ex-Giants this season. He's a good defensive outfielder and a strong hitter. In 1953, Hall of Famer John Henry Lloyd selected his former teammate Payne as the right fielder on his all-time team. Batting eighth, Johnny Hill, another weak hitter, but apparently a good enough defensive third baseman to play 9 seasons with the best black teams in the East. And hitting ninth, 34-year-old William Big Bill Smith. The Tennessee native spent most of the 1890s with the Chicago Unions before moving east with the Cuban Giants and later the ex-Giants. Statistics indicate that the versatile infielder-outfielder was a better hitter than his position in the batting order would suggest. On the bench, first baseman Ray Wilson, a highly regarded veteran who would later manage this team. On the mound, Andrew Foster was a 23-year-old from Texas who held an imposing 230 pounds on his 5 foot 9 inch frame. He threw hard and had an effective screwball, an unusual pitch for a right-hander. Foster joined the ex-Giants this season from the Chicago Union Giants and made an immediate impression, with team exec E.B. Lamar calling him the greatest twirler he had ever seen. Sometime in the neighborhood of 1903, Andrew Foster defeated the Philadelphia Athletics Hall of Fame pitcher Rube Waddell and claimed his vanquished foe's nickname, becoming better known as Rube Foster, the most important figure in Black baseball history. On July 17th of this season, Danny McClellan threw a perfect game against York, Pennsylvania of the Tri-State League, the first perfect game thrown by a black man in professional baseball. McClellan was a left-handed finesse pitcher with an assortment of curves and formed a perfect tandem with Foster's right-handed speed and power. Foster and McClellan were also both strong hitters, and as we've seen, they usually hit in the middle of the batting order. And now the challengers, Saul White's Philadelphia Giants. Leading off, 31-year-old left fielder John "Pat" Patterson. He broke in with the Cuban Giants 10 years earlier, where he backed up second baseman Saul White before finding a home in the outfield. He then moved west and played with the Page Fence Giants, Chicago Columbia Giants, and Chicago Union Giants before returning east to reunite with White in Philadelphia. Patterson was a strong leadoff hitter and excellent base runner. 34-year-old third baseman William Binga was Pat Patterson's teammates with the Page Fence Giants, Chicago Columbia and Union Giants, and made the move to Philly with Patterson this season. The Michigan native spent the majority of his 14-year career playing with Western clubs. Hitting third, Frank Grant, probably the greatest black professional ball player of the 19th century. In 3 seasons with Buffalo of the International League at the start of his career, Grant averaged .347 and was one of the leading hitters in the high minors. When the doors to the white leagues closed, Grant starred for the leading black clubs of the day, including the Cuban Giants, Page Fence Giants, and Cuban ex-Giants. 1903 is Grant's second season with Philadelphia. He's 37 years old and near the end of his career, but the scant statistics we have suggest the old man could still hit. Frank Grant was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2006. 25-year-old Bill Monroe, batting fourth, defected to the Philadelphia Giants from the ex-Giants this season and is just emerging as one of the stars of his generation. Monroe played first base this season, but was skilled at all infield positions. Statistics at SeamHeads.com placed Monroe's defense in the 97th percentile of second basemen all time. He was also a strong hitter, usually batting third or fourth in the order, and a speedy base runner who averaged 44 stolen bases per 162 games over his career. But for all his skill, Bill Monroe may have been better known for his world-class showboating and trash talking. Money, as he was called, was famous for his loud, constant, and humorous chatter during games, with all present fair targets for his verbal barbs. And personally, I would love to know what trash talk sounded like in 1903. Like Frank Grant, Saul White starred in the white minors in his early 20s when such opportunities were still available to black ball players. And like Grant, White later starred for leading black clubs like the Cuban Giants and the ex-Giants. In 1902, he teamed with Walter Slichter to form these Philadelphia Giants. Together, they set out to build a team that could challenge the mighty Cuban ex-Giants, and so here we are. White is 35 years old, but like Frank Grant, still one of the team's leading players. In 1907, Saul Wright would write a book, The History of Colored Baseball, which was an invaluable resource for this presentation, and the only book that existed on the subject of black baseball for 63 years. His given name was King Solomon White, and he was selected for enshrinement in Cooperstown in 2006. The entry on Harry Buckner in James Riley's biographical Encyclopedia of Negro League Baseball talks mostly about Buckner's pitching, and he was a solid pitcher who regularly took turns on the mound for Philadelphia. But he also played regularly in right field, and his batting statistics are one of the biggest surprises for me in the Seamheads database. In the list of career leaders in on-base plus slugging amongst American black players in the decade 1900 to 1909, Harry Buckner ranks third behind Hall of Famers Pete Hill and John Henry Lloyd, and just ahead of Grant Johnson and Bill Monroe. I don't think anyone ever considered him that class of ball player. Admittedly, the statistics are scant, but they suggest Harry Buckner was one of the underrated stars of his generation. The number 7 hitter was Robert Foots, who spent 8 years with the Chicago Unions and Union Giants before moving east this year to join the Phils. He was a weak hitter, but apparently a capable defensive catcher. The number 8 hitter, John Nelson, was a veteran center fielder and part-time pitcher who played 15 years with a number of teams in both the East and West before joining the Philadelphia Giants for their inaugural season of 1902. On the bench, Herm Evans, a part-time player in his only season in blackball. John Manning is another part-timer we know little about. He played with the Phils in 1902 and 3. William Warwick was nicknamed Old Warhorse. He could pitch or play first base or outfield. This is the first of his 4 years in big-time blackball. On the mound, William Bell, not to be confused with the standout pitcher from the 20s and 30s of the same name. This William Bell had a 4-year career, mostly with Philadelphia, but we only have 6 box scores against top competition in those 4 years, so it's hard to tell just how good a pitcher he was. Kid Carter was a left-handed hurler who pitched 6 years in blackball. According to James Riley, Carter allowed the first hit of John Henry Lloyd's career. In many ways, those two rosters constituted a who's who of turn of the 20th century blackball. Now let's see what they did on the field in the 1903 Negro Championship Series. Game 1, Saturday, September 12th, Columbia Park in Philadelphia, the home of the American League Philadelphia Athletics. Andrew Foster on the mound for the ex-Giants, William Bell pitching for Philadelphia. And as the Philadelphia Inquirer wrote the following day, the masterly pitching of Foster and some stupid base running by the Philadelphia Giants gave the Cuban ex-Giants the first game in the series for the Colored Baseball Championship of the World yesterday afternoon at Columbia Ballpark by the score of 4-2. The masterly pitching was easy to see. Foster pitched 9 innings, allowed 6 hits, 2 runs, only 1 earned, walked 3, and struck out 6. And the stupid base running was mentioned by all the commentators. Philadelphia Giants' poor base running loses first game in Colored Championship Series. The headless work of the Philadelphia Giants on the bases resulted in the loss of several runs that might have won the game. And from the Philadelphia Inquirer, very poor base running threw away at least enough runs to tie the score. The box score supports these claims. Cuban's catcher Clarence Williams had 4 assists, and the Phillies had a runner doubled off first on a flyout to center fielder Payne. The Inquirer also said Phillies center fielder John Nelson, quote, electrifies crowd by one-handed catches. For the ex-Giants, 4 runs on 10 hits and 3 errors. Philadelphia, 2 runs on 6 hits and 4 errors. Rube Foster, the winner. William Bell, the loser. The ex-Giants lead the series 1-0. Next, a Sunday doubleheader at Wallace's Ridgewood Grounds in Ridgewood, Queens. In the early game, Harry Buckner pitching for Philadelphia against the ex-Giants' Danny McClellan. And the ex-Giants took the opener 8-1 behind McClellan's stellar performance. 9 innings pitched, allowed just 2 hits, 1 earned run, walked 1, and struck out 7. Grant Johnson and Bob Jordan each had 4 hits for the Cubes. Poor fielding hurt the Phillies in this one. Catcher Robert Foots committed 2 of the Giants' 7 errors. According to the box score, the official scorer who charged Philadelphia with those 7 errors was none other than the legendary Henry Chadwick. Chadwick, known as the father of baseball, was the inventor of the box score and the preeminent writer on the game since the 1850s. His presence is a testament to the importance and prestige of this series. For the Cubes, 8 runs on 15 hits and no errors. Philadelphia, 1 run, 2 hits, 7 errors. McClellan the winner, Buckner the loser. The ex-Giants lead the 8-game series 2-0. In the second game of the doubleheader, which drew a much larger crowd than the first, Danny McClellan, starting both ends of the twin bill, against William Bell, who'd pitched a complete game the day before. A 5-run fifth-inning launch saw White's Philadelphia Giants to their first win of the series, 5-2. William Bell scattered 7 hits to best Danny McClellan, who pitched every inning of the doubleheader for the Cubes. And while the Brooklyn Standard Union offered very few details about these games, they did unfortunately see fit to cover the proceedings with a large banner of racist caricatures of the event. For the Philadelphia Giants, 5 runs on 9 hits and 4 errors. The ex-Giants, 2 runs, 7 hits, 2 errors. William Bell, the winning pitcher, 1-1 record on the series. Danny McClellan, the loser, 1-1 record on the series and on the day. And the ex-Giants lead the series 2-1. Game 4 on Monday at the YMCA Field in Trenton, New Jersey. Kid Carter making his debut in the series against Andrew Foster, who pitched so well in Game 1. And over a box score of the ex-Giants 3-1 win, the Philadelphia Inquirer wrote, "The Cuban Giants won a miserably played game from the Philadelphia Giants today." Much of the misery came from 8 Philadelphia errors, which, as you can see, were generously distributed around the Phillies' infield. The Cubans took a 3-1 lead in the fifth on Saul White's error and back-to-back doubles by Bob Jordan and Grant Johnson. And Andrew "Rube" Foster took care of the rest with a dominant pitching performance. 9 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 unearned run, walked 2, and struck out 3. For the ex-Giants, 3 runs on 5 hits and 2 errors. Philadelphia Giants, 1 run, 3 hits, 8 errors. Winning pitcher Foster is 2-0. Kid Carter falls to 0-1, and the ex-Giants take a 3-1 lead in the series. Game 5 on Tuesday at 12th and Federal Streets in Camden, New Jersey. Danny McClellan starting for the Cubans against Kid Carter, who'd pitched a complete game the day before. And the pitchers dominated this one, but Carter was a little more dominant in the Phillies' 3-0 win. For McClellan, 8 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, 1 earned, walked 4, struck out 8. Kid Carter, 9 innings, 5-hit shutout, walked 1, and struck out 2. From the Camden, New Jersey Morning Post, Saul White, the gentlemanly captain of the victorious team, was the bright particular star of the game. He scored two of the runs, had three of his team's six hits, accepted several hard chances, and participated in a lightning double play which brought the spectators to their feet. Speaking of the crowd, there was never a more demonstrative one on the Camden grounds. From the start to the finish, there was excitement galore, and the character of the game played warranted it. For Philadelphia, 3 runs on 6 hits and 1 error. The ex-Giants, no runs, 5 hits, 3 errors. Winning pitcher Kid Carter with a shutout goes 1-1. Danny McClellan takes the loss. His record falls to 1-2. The ex-Giants still lead the series 3 games to 2. Games 6 and 7 on Wednesday and Thursday were scheduled to be played in Wilmington, Delaware. Over the bridge and follow the crowd, as the ad in the Wilmington Evening Journal put it. But the capriciousness of the weather prevented a game from happening on Wednesday. The two teams woke up that morning in Philadelphia to pouring rain and agreed there would be no game that afternoon. Just 32 miles to the southwest in Wilmington, the sun was shining, and a crowd gathered at Southside Park to see a game that never materialized. Communications being what they were in 1903, there was a long, uncomfortable delay in Wilmington before everyone realized the contestants weren't showing up. The two clubs were determined to give the fans in Delaware a game on Thursday, but Mother Nature didn't cooperate, and rain washed out the contest after 2 innings. No details of the aborted match have survived. And so on Friday, in what was supposed to be the Game 8 finale, the Philadelphia Giants and Cuban ex-Giants met in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for Game 6, with the Cubes leading the series 3 games to 2. In a rematch of the series opener, William Bell for Philadelphia against Andrew Foster making his third start. Foster and Johnny Hill each had 3 hits apiece, while Grant Johnson had 4 RBIs in the ex-Giants' 12-3 romp. Another impressive pitching display by Rube Foster. 9 innings, 7 hits, 3 runs, none of them earned, a walk and 5 strikeouts. And the Harrisburg Daily Independent observed, Foster certainly had a merry time and amused himself by laughing at the futile efforts of the Phillies to hit his benders. For the series, 3 complete game victories, 27 innings pitched, 16 hits, 6 runs, only 1 earned, walked 6 and struck out 14. Philadelphia's Bill Monroe missed the game with an injury, and the shuffling of the lineup contributed to another 8-error game from the Phils. Shortstop Saul White was having a particularly rough time. 3 errors in this contest brought his tally to 8 over the 6 games. For the Cuban ex-Giants, 12 runs, 16 hits, and 2 errors. Philadelphia Giants, 3 runs, 7 hits, 8 errors. Ex-Giants take a 4-2 lead in the series, and as the terribly misnamed Lancaster Intelligencer Journal put it, the game ended the series as the Cubans have won 4 out of 6 and are the darky champions of the world. Except the game didn't end the series, as was originally planned. Perhaps in an effort to make up lost revenue from the 2 Wilmington rainouts, the teams arranged to meet in Camden 1 week later, on Friday the 25th. And though the series had technically been decided, the game was advertised as being for Colored Championship of America. And so we had a 7th game. 12th and Federal in Camden, Andrew Foster on the mound once again against Kid Carter. 6th-inning errors by second baseman Frank Grant and shortstop Saul White gave the ex-Giants the only runs they'd need in a 2-0 triumph. Philadelphia threatened in their half of the 6th, putting runners on second and third with nobody out. But Foster responded by striking out Buckner and Patterson before Binger's groundout ended the threat. Perhaps the best pitching line in a remarkable series for young Andrew Foster. 9 innings pitched, 3 hits, no runs, 4 walks, and 7 strikeouts. For the Cubes, 2 runs on 5 hits and 2 errors. The Phils, no runs, 3 hits and 2 errors. Rube Foster takes his record in the series to 4-0. Kid Carter drops to 1-2. And having won 5 out of the 7 games, the Cuban ex-Giants successfully defended their crown. The obvious choice for series most valuable player is Andrew Foster. 4-0 with a 0.75 ERA and 1 shutout. While at the plate, 918 OPS, 353 batting average, and a slugging percentage that led all batters in the series. The leading hitter overall was ex-Giants veteran first baseman Bob Jordan, who went 13 for 29 over the 7 games for a 984 OPS. And while he had a rough time defensively, Saul White was Philadelphia's leading hitter with a double and 8 singles in 25 at-bats. As you might expect in a baseball environment without a league or centralized structure, there was a good deal of player movement during the ensuing off-season, and much of that movement was between the two rivals. These are the rosters used in that 1903 championship series. Moving from Philadelphia to the ex-Giants were John Patterson and Harry Buckner, while the Phils lure from the defending champs Charlie Grant, Andrew Payne, Johnny Hill, and the grand prize pitcher Andrew Rube Foster. One of the Phillies' biggest weaknesses in the 1903 series was defense from their legendary but ancient double play combo of Saul White and Frank Grant. Saul addressed this shortcoming by swapping positions with the younger and more agile Bill Monroe and replacing an old Frank Grant with an in-prime Charlie Grant. The Giants were further strengthened with some new arrivals. The most notable among them was a rookie center fielder, 21-year-old Preston Pete Hill. Hall of Famer Pete Hill was a generational talent, one of the greatest hitters and outfielders of the dead ball era, black or white. In the 8 box scores that have been found from Hill's rookie season, he's credited with a 323 batting average with 3 runs scored and 4 driven in. And the impression you get from reading Saul White's book is that this 21-year-old of rare talent and ability made an immediate impact on an already strong ball club. The Phillies' new catcher was George Chappie Johnson, a veteran from the West who'd earned a strong reputation for handling pitchers while playing with the Page Fence Giants, Chicago Columbia Giants, Chicago Union Giants, and a remarkable short-lived wonder club in Iowa known as the Algona Brownies, who were Western champions the previous season. Chappie Johnson was an intelligent player and excellent teacher who'd spend over 30 years in blackball as a player, coach, and manager. His talents enabled him to occasionally cross racial barriers, serving as athletic trainer for several white teams over the years, including the National League's Boston Beaneaters during spring training 1906. Pitcher Will Horn also joined Philadelphia from the Western champ Algona Brownies. He's yet another one of these mystery pitchers of the era who played for several leading teams, but whose decade in blackball is covered by just 11 games in the Seams Heads database. For what it's worth, though, those 11 games show an 8-3 record and 2.23 ERA. The defending champion Cuban ex-Giants were still led by captain and shortstop Grant Home Run Johnson, and still featured standouts like Danny McClellan, Clarence Williams, and Bob Jordan. They were strengthened by the pair of former Phils, John Patterson and Harry Buckner, and a few more newcomers further fortified the Cubans' ranks. Center fielder Harry Mike Moore was the ex-Giants gain from the Algona Brownies exodus, having manned third base for the Iowa club in their 1903 champion campaign. Before that, Moore played 8 years with the Chicago Union and Union Giants, and after a few seasons of Eastern ball, would finish his career in the Windy City with the Leland Giants and original Chicago Giants. The career stats for Moore are very misleading because the vast majority of games found are from his 30s when his hitting fell off dramatically. By all indications, he carried a strong bat when in his 20s. He was also said to be something of a ball hawk. Jimmy Smith, who did not play the Hammond B3 organ, was a 30-year-old infielder who spent the majority of his 7 seasons in blackball with Chicago-based teams. James Robinson was a successful pitcher in the 1890s for the Cuban Giants and Cuban ex-Giants, at one time drawing comparisons with the great Amos Rusi. He's credited with one pinch hit appearance in this series and would finish his career as an outfielder. Right-handed pitcher Walter Diamond Ball was discovered by Frank Leland's Chicago Union Giants in 1903 and moved east to join the ex-Giants in 1904. Ball would return to Leland after one season and spend the majority of his 17-year career with Chicago-based teams. In his prime, Walter Ball was one of the best hurlers in black baseball. Among Negro League pitchers over the first 10 years of his career, Ball's ERA of 2.03 ranks second, only behind Rube Foster, and ahead of such luminaries as Jose Mendez, Smokey Joe Williams, and Cannonball Dick Redding. The ex-Giants and Philly Giants continued their winning ways during the 1904 season while playing white semi-pro and collegiate teams, with the Cubes claiming an 86-26 win-loss record for a 768 winning percentage through the month of August. At the end of August, after much anticipation, came the announcement of a championship series between the two titans of Eastern black baseball. In contrast to the previous season's week-long traveling road show, the clubs agreed to a crisp 3-game set at the centrally located seaside resort of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Tucked away from the famous boardwalk in the northeast corner of the city, there was an amusement area on the shores of Abascon Inlet that included Inlet Park, the ball field that would host the series. And you can see Inlet Park clearly in this close-up, right under the red number 2. The dates were Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Now let's take a look at that rematch between the long-reigning champion Cuban ex-Giants and the upstart Philadelphia Giants. Game 1 on Thursday, on the mound, former teammates, now opposing aces. Rube Foster for Philadelphia, Danny McClellan for the ex-Giants. And the next morning's headline told the big story. Philadelphia Giants trim Cuban ex-Giants, Foster fanning 18 men at plate. It wasn't a flawless performance from Rube. He allowed 2 home runs among the Cube's 7 hits, and he walked 5. But your name is going to be in the headline when you strike out 18. And once again, Foster contributed mightily at the plate with 3 hits, a run scored, a triple, and a stolen base, which I still struggle to picture in my imagination. Jack Payne also had 3 hits for the Phils, including a home run, while Bob Jordan and Harry Buckner homered for the Cubes. Ex-Giants second baseman John Pat Patterson had a big day offensively with a single, double, 2 runs scored, and 4 stolen bases. From the Philadelphia Inquirer, the crowd was one of the greatest ever in attendance at a ball game here, hundreds of people coming down from Philadelphia and other points to see the struggle. The betting on the game was very heavy and the excitement intense throughout. For the Philadelphia Giants, 8 runs on 10 hits and 1 error. Cuban ex-Giants, 4 runs, 7 hits, 5 errors. Rube Foster the winner, Danny McClellan the loser, and the challengers take a 1-0 lead in the best of 3 series. Game two on Friday, Will Horn pitching for Philadelphia, and Harry Buckner opposing his old teammates on the mound for the ex-Giants. And Buckner was the star in the Cube's 3-1 win. 9 innings pitched, 5 hits, 1 run, walked two, struck out four. Ex-Giants captain Grant Johnson was the afternoon's batting hero with 3 hits and 1 run driven in. Here's more from the Philadelphia Inquirer regarding the rabid support of the contest. Several hundred fans left the benches and crowded into the field during the course of the game. For the Cuban ex-Giants, 3 runs on 5 hits and 2 errors. Philadelphia, 1 run on 5 hits and 2 errors. Buckner the winner, Horn the loser, and the showdown is now tied at 1 game apiece. The decisive Game 3 was a rematch between the two aces, Rube Foster and Danny McClellan. And I'll let the Philadelphia Inquirer describe the proceedings. The biggest crowd ever seen in the Inlet Ballpark watched the Philadelphia Giants wrest the colored ball championship of the world from the Cuban ex-Giants in the deciding game of the series of 3 this afternoon. 5,000 spectators filled grandstand and bleachers and overflowed to the police-guarded lines, cheering impartially the grandstand plays of the colored ball tossers. The game was hard fought from start to finish, close decisions on 2 occasions nearly precipitating scraps. Catcher Williams of the Cubans was the aggressor in both cases, offering to clean up the umpires and the remainder of the field when decisions were given against his team. A squad of police were compelled to settle both scraps, to the great disappointment of the crowd, which appeared willing to have the game turned into a free-for-all fight. The Philadelphia Giants put up a splendid article of ball, the only runs scored by the Cubes coming in when Patterson, the prize hitter of the team, drove a long ball into the horseshoe show stables for a home run, sending Johnson ahead of him from first. For the remainder of the game, the giant Foster of the Philadelphia contingent kept the batters guessing and unable to land hits with any degree of safety. For Rube, another spectacular display. 9 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, 1 earned, walked 1, struck out 5. And the Philadelphia Giants win the championship, beat out the famous Cuban ex-Giants before a great throng of people at Atlantic City. For the Phils, 4 runs on 6 hits and 3 errors. The Cubes, 2 runs, 2 hits, 3 errors. Rube Foster, the winner, goes 2-0. Danny McClellan takes his second loss. And with that victory, Saul White achieved the goal he'd been striving toward for 3 years. His Philadelphia Giants were the new champions of black baseball. Obviously, the repeat MVP was Rube Foster. 2-0, little over 18 innings pitched, gave up 6 runs, 9 hits, and struck out 23. I don't have that figures for the series, but at the plate in 2 games, Foster had 2 hits, scored 2 runs, a triple, and that stolen base. The leading hitter in the series, John Patterson of the Cuban ex-Giants, 4 hits, including a double and a homer, stole 5 bases in the 3 games. We hear a lot about the legacy of Andrew Rube Foster, the man who organized Negro League baseball and who I properly described earlier as the most important figure in black ball history. But these 2 championship series illustrate the legend before that legend, the beefy hurler from Texas with overpowering stuff who preceded the brilliant manager, owner, and league executive. Foster's pitching stats over the 2 series, 6 wins and no losses, a 0.33 ERA. While at the plate, he was nearly as successful, posting a 385 batting average and 577 slugging percentage. But these series were about more than just one man. Those 2 sets of games demonstrated that fans would turn out in numbers to see 2 quality black teams oppose each other, a revelation that changed the game going forward for black baseball. And for Saul White, the Phillies championship only strengthened his ambitions for the squad. That following winter, he would add three more pieces from the vanquished Cuban ex-Giants. Center fielder Harry Moore, pitcher Danny McClellan, and the grand prize, the Cubans' captain and shortstop, Grant Home Run Johnson, the greatest black ball player of the day. This spelled the end for the decimated Cuban ex-Giants, who limped through two more seasons before folding in the spring of 1907. While the 1905 Philadelphia Giants became the greatest black team assembled up to that time and one of the greatest baseball teams ever put together, black or white. My most significant sources for this presentation were Saul White's book, Phil Dixon's book on the 1905 Philadelphia Giants, Dixon and Hannigan's Photographic History of the Negro Leagues, James Riley's indispensable biographical encyclopedia. Websites consulted include Agate Type and the Sabres Bio and Games projects. Statistics are from sceneheads.com and retrosheet.org, and the clippings came from newspapers.com. I'd like to thank our collaborators, Lifeline Sports, Community Cup Classic, Panache 5, the Partnership, the South Euclid Lyndhurst branch of the Cuyahoga County Public Library, and yours truly. And special thanks to our most valuable partner, Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. I'd like to invite you all to check out my YouTube channel, Negro League Explorations by Dominic DeNaro, where I'm archiving these presentations. And of course, invite you all to come back and join us the second Saturday of every month as we continue Negro League Soul. And with that, I would like to turn it over to questions, comments, and angry outbursts.